Good morning. Welcome back to Entrepreneur Country TV, edition 22. I've got two special guests for you this morning. Ilona Simpson, our CIO in residence at Entrepreneur Country. That's Chief Information Officer. She previously worked at Aston Martin, DHL, where she was responsible for the technical architecture of those organizations. She's bringing that expertise to Entrepreneur Country, where she will help us with our corporate partners to reimagine how that technical architecture will be changing in the future. And then we'll be going out to a real David and Goliath dinner with Amit Pau, who you've heard from before on Entrepreneur Country TV. He'll be introducing you to both the Davids and the Goliaths who come to that dinner.
Started my career in IT 18 years ago with Accenture, worked for amazing brands like Porsche, DHL, Aston Martin, and was able in those 18 years to start from scratch and deliver projects, as well as building, turning around, right-sizing and spinning off IT capabilities to deliver business benefits, to drive competitive advantage, as well as to align with what the business needed at that time. I did have the opportunity to dive into the startup world, into the entrepreneurial world, and I was charged with building operations of an online media startup. It was a very intense, very rewarding journey and challenging journey as well. And I kept close to startups, not directly involved, but I kept mentoring startups. Why I joined Entrepreneur Country and Ariadne Capital is that I believe the power of the future lies in collaboration. Ecosystem economics, for the first time, brings the corporate world and startups together in an organized and structured way. My mission is to allow and to enable corporates to benefit from the framework of ecosystem economics and using the startups as their digital enablers, as accelerators of route to market, delivering new products, as well as changing entire business models. Looking at how to help those startups looking at themselves through the eyes of big traditional businesses, the Goliaths of this world, who are very powerful platforms, and looking at how to bring those two together. This is indeed a very powerful mission.
So you can see that Ilona is much more than just somebody who's managing the IT kit inside of large organizations. She really understands how technology is a tool to enable strategy and how the business processes which are driving the future of business come to life with a clear understanding of how technology is changing. But now let's go to a real David and Goliath dinner and spend time with Amit, who's going to be sharing with you some of the Davids and Goliaths who are at the Credit Suisse David and Goliath dinner.
This evening we're at the Haymarket Hotel launching our formal partnership with Credit Suisse in 2016. Our initial focus is about fintech and the opportunities and threats that fintech provide to the leading banking industry, insurance industry, and how a partnership with leading entrepreneurs really can transform the competitive landscape. As part of the evening, we'll be hearing insights from Credit Suisse on their view in the capital market of the fintech landscape. We'll be having a number of entrepreneurs and leading industry experts sharing their views on the opportunities, the threats, and in particular, the importance of partnerships between leading corporates and the entrepreneurs who are shaping the future.
The opportunities for fintech is, I think, in every area. When I first started investing in fintech in 1999, the areas that fintech could do was asset-light, balance-light areas, transactional mostly. Today, you don't need a balance sheet. You can build a balance sheet with crowdfunding overnight, and that's a huge opportunity. The established players, the Goliath of the world, they have all these costs, structures, silos, etc., and they're hugely vulnerable to being taken for a ride.
AlgoDynamix, it's risk management. The product is used by banks, hedge funds, family offices, and it's to help them with portfolio risk and counterparty risk. Selling to banks is very challenging, and that's not a criticism, it's just the way things are. So trying to get a better understanding, how can we enter their ecosystem? I don't necessarily think it's always appropriate for the large banks to sort of go in and to say, we're going to disrupt your business. It's about working together. It's about figuring out what they are doing and how we can help, how we can build onto that. And by all means, longer term, there will be a bit more disruption down the line. But, initially it's about sort of quick, easy, tangible value adds. So I think the question about, getting David and Goliath to dance in the same room, we both need each other. We need each other because the banks already have their large client base, there is infrastructure. It's something we don't have. On the flip side, banks are not always too good at bringing new products to market. And that's something they may not want to admit per se, quite rightly. But, so the dance is very appropriate. It's a dance of partnership. And I think that's the way it should be viewed. We're both going to gain.
The Entrepreneur Country as a forum, as a community, backed by Ariadne, is absolutely critical to the growth, to bringing new Davids to market, and actually exposing them in a positive way to the Goliaths and the market in general. The process of Entrepreneur Country, for me, is more than just an introductory showcase of who is out there. It's the facilitation of those conversations in a really positive way that enables business to take place.
We're still very much at the very early stage of the whole revolution in terms of how technology is going to impact financial services, primarily because you have technology trends right now, such as social networking, technology, marketplaces that are completely changing what's possible in terms of technology and what services can be delivered. And secondly, you have behavioral changes from customers. So things like the sharing economy, demographic changes as millennials enter the workforce, which are changing the expectations and the way customers behave and what they expect from their financial institutions. I would say the opportunity is also global. It's not just in the developed markets, but it's also in developing markets where, in fact, you could use technology to bypass maybe financial infrastructure that didn't reach everybody. Another key point is, so as we see that the market is extremely large, what's also happening is that it's getting extremely competitive. And, as you see, prices and take rates are experiencing some pressure. So what's going to determine success is how much companies can scale. So the larger you get, the more things like winner takes all or winner takes most market dynamics start getting into place. You start experiencing the benefit of certain network effects, and that success starts begetting further success in this particular sector. As you look to future trends, one thing that's going to come up is how do these corporations actually harness all the data they're collecting? There's a tremendous amount of data being collected from multiple sources, clients, transactions, and how organizations are able to use this data to improve the services they provide is going to be crucial. As an example, this could be transaction data to analyze customer purchase behavior. It could be better credit scoring, better actuarial pricing in the insurance sector. And then finally, I would say that regulation is going to play a key role, as it already has within the financial services sector. So from two aspects. One would be, existing financial institutions, as they look at providing new services, they need to see how this fits into the regulatory framework in which they operate. And then secondly, it would also be new companies that are not really under any particular regulator's purview. But as these business models develop and get formalized, there's a high chance that they might become. So then how would they operate then as regulated entities? So I think as we look at how capital markets and public investors start looking at companies in this space, I think there's no question about the size of the addressable market that these companies are going after. So the market opportunity is definitely there. It's just a question of how credibility can a particular company gain share, beat off the competition and reach a certain scale. Another aspect is, even though I guess maybe say 6 to 12 months ago, investors would have been more willing to support sort of a grow at all costs mentality. Now there's a lot more focus on building out a sustainable operating model. So as a result, there's a lot more focus on, what is the path to profitability for this particular company, as well as, what could be the long-term profit margins for something like this. And then finally, like we mentioned earlier, regulation is obviously something that investors look at very closely as the landscape is continuously changing. So they're going to basically try and see what sort of regulatory regime might be applicable to these new companies and these new business models as they start getting set up and as they start gaining traction.
Thank you so much for watching Entrepreneur Country TV this morning. The Entrepreneur Country Forum on the 19th of April at the Royal Institute of Great Britain is now less than a month away. The new speakers have been announced. The sessions are on the website. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for sharing Entrepreneur Country TV with your network, watching the podcast, subscribing to the channel, and we look forward to seeing you next week.